We sometimes forget how often the webs were out to trap Jesus. How many times people thought, I've got it. I've got the question that will get that little rabbi. Today's story from Matthew is one of those occasions. Jesus gives an answer that cuts through not just their malice, but cuts through time. Give to God what is God's. And part of our dilemma and discouragement is the question itself reverberating around us. What is God's today? But we know with truth and relief, the creation is God's. This good earth is God's. I was doing a course online about the climate crisis that we're in. And part of the class was an exercise in which you got to name what you thought were a few of the causes that could be ascribed to climate crisis. And then you're allowed to choose just a handful, and they would tell you how it actually stood up. I didn't do that well. One of mine was number 48 out of 50, so that's not much. But one of them was number 3. And I was very happy with that. Number 1 and number 2, I didn't guess, refrigeration and wind turbines on land. But number 3, I got. And today, it's one of our conversations around World Food Day, because the number 3 part was reduced food waste. We saw that very short clip from the 75th anniversary of the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. They have a slogan this year of grow, nourish, sustain, together. Our actions shape our tomorrow. Our actions are our future. Grow, nourish, and sustain. Well, they had a great big party this week in Rome. If anybody could fly, they would have gone, but of course we can't. So I had to watch it online. And so I have a quote from that wonderful party. This guy stood up and said, "The current crisis," that's in hunger, "the current crisis shows that specific policies and actions are needed to eliminate hunger from the world." And then he continued, "Dialectical or ideological discussions can sometimes divert us from this objective, and we allow our brothers and sisters to continue to die from lack of food. A courageous decision would be to use the money spent on arms and other military expenditure to set up a world fund which would defeat human hunger permanently and help the poorest countries." Now, imagine somebody being brave enough to say, we should spend that money not on armaments, but on food. And just to tell you a clue to who he was quoting a document called Fratelli Tutti. Yes, it was Pope Francis, suggesting that bold action. Our actions are our future. So one of the questions that we have, that we're being asked this year for Food Day, is who are your food heroes? I'm wearing an apron today, of course, for World Food Day. I have another beautiful apron here. Aprons remind us, of course, of the food we eat at home. And if you come with me, I have a very simple craft you can do at home about a food hero. Let me just get this off. This is very old, so you can see it's quite fragile. You could spit through it probably, but you can see what this is? It's a tea towel. And all you do is you take a tea towel and cut out 2 slots for your arms, and then you just put this regular old ribbon on it with a D-ring, and you've got yourself an instant apron to give to your food hero. So what's a food hero? A food hero is someone who helps us grow food right here in our own gardens, and you'll see community gardens spreading up all over the place. There's people who have chickens in their backyard, and every year at Christmas time, different charities, including our own United Church of Canada, arrange that you can give a chicken or a goat or a little dairy herd to somebody overseas, and that would make you their food hero. But what does it mean when they say about not having wasted food? Partly it's we throw out enough food to feed millions of people. Sometimes we throw out because it's at a restaurant, sometimes it's at a store, sometimes it's at our own home. So I have on the front here some cookbooks, because you might have a food hero at home who can teach you how to use up leftovers, how to make soup, how to make stews or pot pies, something like that. That would be a food hero. Another food hero would be somebody who helps you have a meal that's plant-based. So I have here a beautiful bag of wild rice. When I was in northern Saskatchewan as a student minister, the local indigenous farmers sold wild rice. It was so wonderful. So a food hero might be someone who would teach you how to make a second meal out of leftovers. It might be someone who would encourage you to have a plant-based meal. And so on the far side, you'll see that beautiful bucket of kale, brimming full of goodness. Food hero, then, is something we can all aspire to. They don't wear capes. Some of them don't even wear aprons. But they're the people who help us understand how what we do here has impact everywhere. And so this year's food heroes are people who help us act, reflect in ways that say, we know that this world is God's world, and we want to give to God that which is God's. We want to honor the Spirit in how we behave around food. Giving to the Mission and Service Fund, we saw all those images, didn't we, of community ministries providing food. An excellent and beautiful start for us. Something I know that's long been a part of the history of us here. So we can be food heroes as we take the gift of this World Food Day. Eat locally, buy things that are grown right here on Vancouver Island or in British Columbia. Try to eat seasonally whenever it's possible. Eat the apples that are from this year's crop. Having this gives us the chance to make up food with leftovers, maybe desserts too. I wonder what else you're thinking of at home that you could do. You know, the Canadian Geographic magazine on their website this week has a fabulous recipe for bannock with only, I think, 4 ingredients. And so that's something maybe you could make with your friends or your mom and your dad, or if you're a grandma, you could make it with your little people, or a cousin or a nephew, or you could just make it and take it to a neighbor. We can all be food heroes. I wonder what else we can do that would help us to grow, to nourish, and to sustain the food resources today that we would together shape tomorrow, helping others give thanks to God as we return to God, the gifts of creation. Amen.